welcome to another episode of On Foodable, and today, of course, we are still here in Atlanta, and we are talking about innovations here at the Restaurant Innovation Summit held by the National Restaurant Association, and I've got Stowe and Adam with me today, and we're going to talk a little bit about loyalty, kind of the science of it, and why it's so important in the restaurant business. But before we get started, Adam, tell me a little bit about you and Cane's. What's going on over there?
Yeah, so my name's Adam Reed. I'm the Regional Director of Marketing for Raising Cane's. Responsible for a lot of the marketing in the areas of new and emerging market growth.
Okay.
So we're building restaurants like crazy, which is great, and we're going into a lot of new markets that haven't had a lot of awareness to Raising Cane's. Very little brand penetration in our emerging markets. So I'm really responsible for driving and helping drive a lot of the marketing efforts in those areas.
Right. Now, Raising Cane's, a lot of our viewers may not know the brand. It's mostly Dallas and, or I should say Texas and Louisiana.
Yep.
What is Cane's as a brand itself?
Cane's is actually, Raising Cane's is known for doing one thing and doing it better than anyone else, which is quality chicken finger meals.
Okay.
That's our one love, as it said in our tagline. So it's really great chicken fingers, really amazing chicken fingers, crinkle cut fries, Texas toast, coleslaw, and then we have our addictive
sauce,
cane sauce.
I know all about this sauce.
Yeah, it's
a good one.
You can use it on anything.
That
you can
in
use
itself,
it as moisturizer.
You could probably put that in a bottle and just call that loyalty science right there.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Lots of affinity for the cane sauce.
Back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stowe, where do you come from? Where do you hail from?
So I am the dean at the William F. Harrah College of Hotel Administration out in fabulous Las Vegas. And you know, we have about 3,000 undergraduate students, so we're really training the future leaders in our industry at UNLV. And we really focus, you know, when you think about hospitality programs, pretty much all hospitality programs focus on the business side of our business.
Right.
And what we're trying to do at UNLV, and I've only been dean for about a year, a little over a year, is really moving the program to focus on what we call the art, the science, and business of hospitality, where the art is the design, the layout, the atmospherics, everything that creates that great experience for customers. And then the science, whether it be revenue management, molecular gastrometry, or the science of consumer behavior, which drives loyalty. And then, of course, the business side. So when students come out, they have a much better understanding of all the components of this fabulous industry.
Let's talk about loyalty. So the restaurant industry, we just had a chance to interview and pick the brain of Hudson Reilly, great analyst for the industry, been around for a long time. One of the things he talked about, which I think really applies to what you guys are discussing with us today, is kind of this notion of that tipping the scale of getting that frequency to rise in the industry. You know, because there's food away from home, there's a large portion of new consumers coming in from the millennial group into this category, and they do think differently, act differently, respond differently to all these things. Let's just kind of open up with a question to both of you. What do you see as the biggest challenge in trying to get loyalty embedded into kind of this constant change we're dealing with in the industry? Adam?
Oh, man. You know, I think it's just really making sure that the loyalty programs that are established wind up getting to the core of who the customer is, and it's not a blanketed solution for all.
Right.
So I think in the past there's been a lot of blanketed solutions for all. Loyalty has been a very non-definable term. It's just been kind of a floating around as a buzzword in the industry.
Right.
And I think now that we're in a technology shift where we're absolutely able to kind of drill into the information and the data that Stowe was talking about and make decisions off of it. You know, the biggest barrier in my mind is making sure that, you know, those decisions are based purely off of the data, and they also are very customizable and get to the core of who the customer is. It draws out the affinity of loyalty more so than just the frequency. The frequency is almost a byproduct of making sure that the customers that you have are just really, I mean, quite simply happy.
Yeah.
And quite simply happy with, you know, what you're providing them in a way of rewards.
Yeah. Stowe, one of the biggest companies in the world, Salesforce.com.
Yes.
You know, they think of the consumer and the customer from a B2B standpoint, and in some cases B2C, as kind of this whole dossier approach.
Yes.
You know, how does that work with big data, and how would that apply to the restaurant industry
Well,
in terms of this?
So when we think about, one of the problems that we often have is we use the term frequency programs and loyalty programs interchangeably.
Interesting.
And I like to think of it this way, is that frequency focuses on behavior and loyalty focuses on emotion. And so what we really try to do in loyalty programs is we try to create that emotional bond with the customer.
Right.
So they don't practice promiscuity, but really will come and stay with us all the time or buy from us on a more frequent basis than they would otherwise.
Yep.
And so when we think of companies like Salesforce, what they've been able to do is they've been able to provide kind of almost like a 360-degree view of the customer, so that we can really focus on those things that drive emotion. And you know, in the work that I've done, we talk about what I call the loyalty circle, which is process, value, communication. Process, everything that happens from the time the customer begins to think about buying from you to the time they do, and everything that happens there. How do we add value to that stay? And then also, how do we communicate? And so the big data allows us to improve the process, add points of value, and communicate in a way that the customer goes, wow, they do really know me.
Right.
And I want to be loyal to them.
Yeah. So let's talk on our last question here about big data and, you know, kind of this theming that the industry has dealt with. A lot of companies are dealing with the kind of their first challenge into big data today. Most of that's coming from social, so it's unstructured. Some of it's coming, you know, from, you know, everything from review systems to, you know, current, you know, tabulation programs or people where they're just answering surveys. You know,
Yeah.
Where do you see this affecting our industry in the future in terms of decision processes around business?
Well, so, I mean, it's going to be huge, obviously. And I think, you know, one of the things we're doing, as I mentioned earlier at UNLV, is we're going to create a master's, a one-year master's in data analytics. And it's certainly going to be, you know, in the old days, I think we kind of had a gut feeling. We'd go to a market and go, yeah, this looks like a good place for a restaurant.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be much driven by trends. What, you know, where we, who's our customer? Where are they going? Where else are they going? What do they like? What don't they like? How does that match with other areas in the country? So it's definitely going to drive that behavior.
Yep, yep. Okay, so Adam, you guys are rolling fairly well in terms of growth. How do you decide on what markets to, you know, go out and expand into?
You know, we've built a lot around college markets,
Okay.
Which I think has behooved us because it's allowed there to be a lot of knowledge from when these students start to adopt Raising Cane's and then spread out. So a lot of it kind of mushrooms out from, you know, where we really currently are and where we're situated. You know, from our core in Louisiana, our diehards in Louisiana, and then now Texas. We're starting to expand through Texas. So I think a lot of it, you know, our real estate department is the best to answer that question, of course. But what I've seen too is, like, you know, going into markets that have a little bit of bleed over knowledge of Raising Cane's already, to where we've already kind of created what we call Caniacs.
Yep.
And those Caniacs can help. They're already brand ambassadors for us. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, they're allowed to spread that word of mouth so much earlier before the restaurant opens that we wind up seeing a really great response. So we look really, really in those areas.
Yeah. Guys, thanks so much for stopping in on this episode of On Foodable.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, so guys, make sure and check us out on our last few episodes here at the Restaurant Innovation Summit here in Atlanta. Thanks for stopping in.